Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the ProSource podcast. Today, we're joined by Alyssa Warring, founder and principal designer of Wren House Design. Alyssa is an Arizona native with a serious passion for homes, design, and architecture. She started out in the commercial space, but eventually found her true calling in residential, where she loves creating spaces that really reflect her clients' lives. With nearly a decade in the industry, hands-on construction experience, and a portfolio that includes luxury homes over 8,000 square feet, she's built an impressive career doing what she loves. We're so excited to have her here to share her story, insights, and what it's like running a successful design business. Alyssa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
First, I just want to learn a little bit more about your business. Can you tell us the story behind Wren House Design and what inspired you to start it?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you just said, I've been in the industry for a little over 8 years now. And so that is a long time in kind of cultivating my experience into everything that you just said. And it got to a point where, I was creating design departments for other people or being an independent contract worker for design firms. And I was like, I can do this on my own. And I got the opportunity to have this really big project come my way and be rewarded that project that kind of financially set up the back end of everything for starting up your business. So I had kind of security with this bigger project that I had. And then knowing that I was fully capable after, 8 years that I could kind of rely on myself and do this, that kind of cultivated the starting point. Actually, almost a year ago, August will be our 1 year mark of Wren House Design being its own company. Thank you. Yeah, we're very excited. But that's kind of the jumping off point, was just being confident and understanding that, I've got the experience, I can rely on myself, and I kind of understand where this needs to grow and what I want to do. And then having a project that could kind of help me get there without the stress of where's that next project coming from, or, where is that next paycheck coming from? Just having the security kind of really led me to start everything on my own. So
cool. And from a yong age, did you imagine yourself being in the position where you are at now, or how was that journey?
No, not at all. I think there are some people that have aspirations of starting their own company, and I've teetered with that idea for many years, but it was never something that I full on set passions to do. I didn't take any business classes in college. I didn't focus on those elements that I think are key points in being somebody that is more of the entrepreneurial setting and mindset. I think as I got older and as my career kind of blossomed and grew, it just made the most sense that that was the path that I needed to travel down in order to get the most impact out of the career I wanted in this industry. So I think it just gravitated towards that and evolved towards that and just made the most sense. And it's been a learning curve. Like I said, I didn't take any business classes. I don't understand a whole lot about the business side of things. So that has been a lot to learn and understand. And being a small business and where you're kind of a one-woman show, I'm the designer and the person that's getting the new business, and also the accountant and the person billing, and all those other things that come into just being a small business. So all those things had to be self-taught and learned over the course of the last year. And so it's been a lot, but it's definitely been rewarding and has a lot of pros to it. So it's been a great journey.
That's awesome. No, I think in today's world, especially, it's all about being adaptive to everything. Being able to just roll with the punches and keep going, and trial and error. And I think with our digital landscape, it is so easy for people to become an entrepreneur because not easy, I should say, but easier than 50 years ago, because there's so many resources. If you do want to teach yourself, like you said, you can certainly do that if you really put your head down and do the work. But that's awesome that, you just kind of ended up where you're at, and you had no idea maybe when you were 12 that this is what was going to be in store for you, but you seem really happy about it.
Oh my gosh. No, when I was 12, I thought I was going to be a veterinarian. Who are you kidding? Yeah, I didn't
Everyone.
Interior design wasn't even a thing back in the day. So it wasn't until my junior year of high school when I was like, okay, I want to go to college for something specific. What does that look like? And then I thought about like my younger self and my habits and my hobbies and what I was doing. And I was like, well, maybe interior design makes sense. But like I said, like we didn't have social media. We didn't have all this influence or, design books or anything back in the day. And so it wasn't something that people really knew about or talked about. And I just kind of jumped into it, not really knowing what to expect, not knowing anything about it. And just it made sense. And I fell in love with it. And I think there's something true to finding your passion and diving into that. And when you're doing something on the day to day that is your passion that you love, like it just makes things so much easier. You are so much happier going to work.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like work all the time.
And some days definitely feel like work more than others, for sure. But I think at the end of the day, when you are passionate about what you're doing and you love it, that it makes it so much easier. And you're just going to networking events or going to different showrooms or meeting people and all those other elements that we have to do in this industry. Like those things are enjoyable when it's kind of like everyone's there and based around the same common goal and interest and passion. So there's so many nuances to this industry, but it is really fun.
Oh, absolutely. And I know I was browsing your website while doing research for this podcast, and I know that you really focus on helping clients like create a home that is styled for living. What does that mean to you personally and professionally?
Yeah, absolutely. So we made that kind of our manifesto, our thing that we live by. Styled for living for us means that we are truly understanding our clients and we're designing the home around what makes sense for them. What phase of life are they in? Who's using this home? We believe that anybody in any phase of their life, whether they have little kids or they're empty nesters, that these homes can be intentionally designed for them that are styled for their living. That is something that we learned early on in design school, is that the foremost thing about design is that your home has to function for you. If it does not function, then it's not a good design. And so for us, that really just means like really sitting down with our clients, getting to know them, getting to know where they're at in life, where they're going to be by the time this house is done, really picking materials out or finishes out that are going to make sense for where they're at in their life. And so that's kind of what we wrapped our concept around, the styled for living around, is just really understanding who our end user is and just cultivating a beautiful design around who's actually going to be living in the home.
Absolutely. So if somebody comes to you and they're having like a crisis, like I don't know really who I am, I don't know what my style is, I don't even know what I'll need in the next year, let alone 5 years, is there a process that you go down with them to like, maybe there's like checklist, or what's that look like if someone really has no idea like what their style is?
Yeah. And that's the case all the time. We have our inquiry form on our website, and one of our things on there is, do you have a Pinterest board that you can share with us? Like, what is your inspiration? Because a lot of times the average person, they don't really know the identity of different styles. They gravitate towards different things, but they don't know what that really represents. So a lot of times we'll get these Pinterest inspiration boards from clients, and it's kind of pulled in so many different directions. And we really, like I said, take the time to sit down with our clients and navigate that. It's really about educating them and sitting down and being like, what do you like about this image? Or what do you find most appealing about this concept? And we kind of dive deeper into that, because, and same with what we put out conceptually, we could have a whole image that we're inspired by, but we're really looking at a key element in that image, right? It could be a kitchen, but we're looking at the backsplash detail. And it's really just having those conversations to really identify what it is that they are gravitating towards, and then kind of honing down what that style is. And like I said, the clients that don't know anything about design or that need more handholding, it is just taking the time to kind of talk about every little element of the design phase and narrowing down what colors they like, what colors they don't like, what materials they want to use. Are they someone that wants natural stone or do they need manufactured stone? Really educating them and having those deeper conversations, again, to create a home that makes sense for them versus what we just want to see out in the world, is super important to us.
No, I totally agree. I can relate with the fact that like my Pinterest is insane. I feel like maybe I'm a different person like every week, but like
Yeah.
one week I'm really into like just straight edge modern, and then the
Yeah.
next week I'm like maximalism. I like all the colors. And then I'm like, what was I thinking? That looks insane. I would never do that.
Yes.
So I totally can relate with you, and probably what you see in some clients is they just don't know, or they're going back and forth. I know you have a five-step process. So when you do take on a new project, you have it laid out, I think, on your website, right?
Yes.
Where and we just talked about kind of the starting phases of that. Can you elaborate more on like what your five-step process is with new clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So our first phase is discovery. So like any new inquiry or client that comes our way, we want to have those conversations with them to understand what it is that they're looking for, and more importantly, making sure we're the right fit for them. So we have those conversations about what their project is, who else might be working in the project, whether that be they are engaging with an architect, they have a builder in mind, kind of just understanding the full scope in that discovery phase. Once we transition into them being a client is when we start conceptualizing everything with the design. So we start again diving deeper into their Pinterest boards, having those conversations about what they're looking for design wise, and we start pulling together the concepts for certain areas in their home. When we're doing full scale remodels or new builds, we're pulling areas for concepts for kitchens and prep kitchens and living rooms and trying to paint a whole vision for our inspiration before we start into our individual design elements for their project specifically. Is we're trying to create a vision for them to see, because a lot of times clients aren't visual people. So they need to see pictures of everything. Like, how is this going to be implemented? What does that material actually look like installed? So we're kind of picking out all the nuanced photos to really represent what we have in our minds and what our visions are. So that way it translates easier for our clients during this conception phase. And then we get into development. So after we kind of presented all these concepts and we're good to go, we start getting into our actual development phase of everything. And that's where we are. I like to start out with cabinet design. It's oftentimes something that takes the most time to do, especially when we're doing new builds and there's cabinetry everywhere. So we're bringing the floor plan into elevations, and that's the first chance the client is starting to visualize kind of these designs in their homes in a 2D kind of element space. And then we're applying the materials to that. So once we go through cabinetry and we see what these walls are going to look like, we are applying materials to that and putting together beautiful mood boards, again, for that visual element of the design phase so that they can see kind of what everything looks like together. And then we move into presentation where they can see and feel those materials. And that is a huge portion of our design process and any designer's process, is making sure that what we're putting into the home, the client is actually being able to see and physically touch. And at that point too, sometimes you can see something digitally and then you see it physically and you're like, wait, this color tone is way off. Like, these textures aren't what I want. So it's really important to see those things in person. And oftentimes that means we're going out to showrooms and we are walking through plumbing showrooms and we're touching appliances and looking at lighting in person, again, to make sure it's the right fit. And I often tell clients, I'm like, although it takes extra time to go out and do these things, you're going to appreciate it more because, again, you're seeing how things work, you're understanding the function, and lighting is one of the funnest things to go see in person because the scale is, it's just amazing to see those things. So I think that's also a huge important part of that. And then our last phase is the fulfillment phase. So that's where, we're at the end of the process, everything's selected, we've stopped, going back and forth on revisions. And that's where us as the designers are going into kind of our downloading phase. We're prepping the design book, we're finalizing our designs, we're putting all the details of everything that we've selected into our documents that we are then handing over to our builders and our clients and delivering in our final deliverables.
That's awesome. Thank you for going through each one with me. I know it was like a loaded question.
Yeah, no,
And
thanks so
I'm
much.
sure there's more details too. I know there's more details.
Yeah,
You talked about lighting, and I do know it's so interesting when you have product samples how different they can look from the color, just how they come across depending on what lighting they are in, right? Is
yes.
that like a something you run into a lot where maybe the client thinks it's going to look one way and then they finally see it in person under the lighting that it's going to be under, and they're like, wait, I don't want to move forward with this because this is not how I imagined it.
Yeah, no, lighting is a whole different beast. That you can literally just specialize in lighting, and there's just so much to learn about it and the layered lighting, the type of lighting needed in certain spaces of design. It's something that we just touch on as designers. We have to know a little bit about everything. So we have like our favorite type of lighting that we like to incorporate in homes. We stay away from very cool lighting because that tends to be too blue or like feel like a hospital or whatever it is. So we like to have more warm lighting in our homes. We oftentimes will tell clients to take things outside even to see things in natural light. And I think it also depends on, if we're working on a new build and we're in the construction phase and we're walking through the homes and you get to see the house at different points in the day. So if you walk the job in the morning, you can see what the morning light looks like, or in the afternoon or evening. The lighting is always going to change in the home, whether that be natural or artificial lights. This is oftentimes why we say, like, if you're trying to pick out paint, we can look at the undertones that are listed online for what the paint color is, but it really helps to put swatches on your wall because the direction of your home, how many windows you have, the direct light versus artificial light, it's all going to impact those selections that you have. Um, I wouldn't say like if we're bringing in, a selection of tile that the lighting is going to impact that as much as some of the other elements in the home. When we're doing our presentations, we lay everything out for our clients on a table so they can see everything cohesively together. We'll pull things closer into the client when we're kind of going through that space. Again, we're bringing things up to windows. And a lot of times we are often like, I will order samples in before, like way before these presentations, before I put them into finalized, digital mood boards for clients. And I'm looking at the color tones. And there's times where I'm like, wait, seeing this myself in person is a lot different. So I won't even present it to a client because it was not what I wanted it to be. So we're trying to eliminate a lot of these things before we even bring it to the client. Because the less decisions they have to make, the better, I think. And that's why they
Yeah.
have us.
No, absolutely. I feel like lighting is just an annoying beast of a element in the whole process that you're constantly trying to work around because it's always present. It's like color theory, but lighting theory, right? It's
Yeah.
just like something so niche that homeowners definitely probably don't think about. I mean, maybe they do ever so often, but I'm sure they don't, right?
No, no, not at all. I mean, they're more worried about like, oh my gosh, my can light bulb just went out and now I have to replace it. And then oftentimes we'll go into clients' houses and they have like three different type of light bulbs and three different hues of light going on. And they're just like, wow, I just threw something up there. And you're like, okay, well, we have to fix that. Like you're not getting the best use out of your space if it's kind of all mumbo
Yeah.
jumbo together.
No, I bet
Yeah.
I feel like maybe I have different light bulbs in my house actually. Now I'm gonna
Well,
go
we've all
home
been
and look
there.
at that. Yeah, I know. I'm gonna go home and be changing up my light bulbs. My boyfriend's gonna be like, what are you doing?
What are you
Those are
doing?
perfectly fine."
They work, but is it really what we want? Yeah, no,
Exactly. No, you're so right.
it, yeah, it makes a lot of difference. And I just had a meeting with a client last week where we were talking about lighting and the can lighting in the kitchen. And she was an older client. She was talking about, this modern world with all the LEDs and everything. And I'm like, well, don't give LEDs a bad name, especially when it comes to like the retrofitted like cans that you can put into like your ceiling now. I was like, make sure you find the ones, they have some that have little dials on them so you can kind of curate whatever lighting you want and fits best in your home too. So you're not stuck with just whatever you buy off the shelf. You have some little room to play with the color tone in your house when you buy those specific can lenses or LED lenses. So I'm like, those are super important. They might be a little bit more expensive, but they're going to be worth it at the end of the day.
Yeah, and if you want it to be dim in your room, like I know right now we have like lamps that are, annoying to just have to go and like turn on and find the right setting to just make
Yeah.
it like a little bit moody, not too bright, but you still want some light with those lights that you were talking about. Those are magical because you can really fine tune the lighting for
Yeah.
whatever situation you have going on.
Yeah. And whatever
Um,
room you're in and all that kind of stuff. And then dimmable lighting, that's a game changer too. So it's like there's just
yeah,
so many avenues and paths when it comes to lighting. It is its whole other different thing. But yeah, it has a huge impact on everything else for
No, yeah,
sure.
I'm glad we got to talk about it because I don't know if we've had anyone on that has talked about it like
Yeah.
this. And when you brought it up, I'm like, yeah, that's something I never think about, and I'm sure most people don't think about.
No, it's an afterthought. We're just like accustomed to like, yeah, we need light. Like we're not thinking about like where it's going to be or what kind of light. Is it directional? Is it for ambience? Like there's so many things to it. And I used to work on electrical plans all the time for
Oh,
the
cool.
architect I worked for. So it was like really understanding, how many can lights you need. What is that space used for? Do we need under cabinet lights or, decorative lights? Or is this really just a fixture to be a fixture on the wall and just be cute, there's so many things to it. So it's definitely super important though.
No, for sure. So I know we've talked about your process, your five-step process, and you focus a lot on bringing simplicity and peace to the process, making it easy for the clients. You just said the less questions or things they have to decide on, I think is what you said. The less things they
Yeah.
have to decide on, the easier it is for them and you, I'm sure. In an industry that can be so overwhelming, how do you make remodeling feel manageable for your clients? Like, what are those specific little tips and tricks maybe you can share with other interior designers that they can implement when they're working with clients?
So, like I said, it starts with educating the client. A lot of times, these clients are coming to us and they've never worked with a designer. They don't know anything about interior design or what the process actually looks like. So, one, it's educating them on us and what an interior designer brings to the table because there is so much more to the interior design service than just picking out tile and paint colors and, throw pillows. There are so many decisions that need to be made, especially in the new construction world. So, really just educating our client, one on us, but about the process. And a lot of times, we rely on our other partners, whether that be builders or architects in the industry, to also educate our clients. So that way they kind of get a full picture of everything that is entailed with the project of the scope that we are taking on, but making sure that expectations are set up front, that we are, we're here to make it as easy as possible. And when I say like bringing up or bringing things to the client so they don't have to make as many decisions, that's what they're hiring us for, is to take their ideas and take what they want and like really listening to those things, even down to, like I said, like colors that they do not want in their home or colors they love in their home, and really kind of narrowing that down and bringing them maybe three different tile options or sometimes even one. Like if you're like dead set on like this client is going to love this design, this is all I want to show them. We are taking on the brunt of the work and we're doing all that work on our back end and sourcing all these materials. So that way, what they're seeing is kind of narrowing down their selections. If a client walks into a tile showroom, sometimes they're overwhelmed, or a lighting showroom. Like it's overwhelming to people. Sometimes it's overwhelming to me to walk into a lighting showroom because there's things everywhere. And our job is to listen to them, bring everything together. So that way, what we're picking out and what we're showing them is the best of the best for what their budget is, what the space is, and the design intent. Um, and so we're really trying to manage that and the expectations there and really just having control over that and making sure like, clients aren't going rogue and wanting to go to showrooms on their own. We're trying to like really hone in and say like, we're the experts in what we're doing and we're doing the best by, everything that you've told us and the design style and your budget that you've given us. So really just the main thing, I guess, for me when handling a client that is super overwhelmed is really just coming back to the framework of this process and educating them and setting the right expectations.
No, absolutely. You talked about being overwhelmed, and I know ProSource Wholesale showrooms across the
Mhm.
country can be very overwhelming to someone that is not a pro, someone that they're like a homeowner that's just walking in to check out products. That can be very overwhelming. So I
Yeah.
think, like you said, if they're going rogue and they're going in without you, that can put them in maybe a whole different mindset. Do you ever have clients come to you? I'm sure there's clients that are like helicopter clients that are like, I want to be part of every single decision. Like, I need to be there every single step of the way. But do you ever have clients that are like, we trust you, kind of, this is what I'm going for, you make all the decisions, and we'll circle back at the end of the process? Do you have anyone like that that's very just relaxed and doesn't really want to be part of the process so much?
Yeah, we have a range of clients. That's kind of the unexpected and why as much as we like clients to talk to us in our discovery and get to know us, like we have to get to know them and make sure that they're the right fit for us too. Um, and I've had a range of clients over my career, especially when I was working in the general contracting field and we were doing remodels and we had engineering clients or finance clients or, whatever career path they had kind of infiltrated the remodel process and how much they were involved in which areas, whether that be, really detailing down kind of our scope of work and our billing process to taking out levels and measuring the slope of the shower. Like I've had it all when it comes to clients. But I have also had clients where they're like, I love everything that you've done. I trust you and just go with it. But those clients are extremely rare, but I have had those mainly in kind of the custom home or new construction. Do you get those a little bit more? Which is really nice because you're starting with a clean slate. And so they don't really know what they're looking for, and you're bringing everything to them. They haven't lived in the space, they haven't walked in the space. So they're really open to a lot more ideas. And so those clients are a little bit, like I said, open to everything that you're bringing them. And so that's kind of where sometimes you get to bring your more creative designs and, more unique materials and they're gung ho about it and they're open to everything. And once you start that relationship with the client and they see kind of from the concepts, like, oh my gosh, like this is exactly what I wanted. And then you get into the materials and they're like, yes, yes, yes. Then you get to the furniture and they're like, just do what you want. And you're like, yeah, perfect. Because you've already shown that you understand them really well, that you're bringing all the things that they didn't know they wanted to the table. And it takes time to cultivate those relationships and build that with that client. But there are unicorn clients out there that are really open to everything and just say, yep, go ahead. And we love everything that you do.
No, that is awesome. Are there any certain like trends or materials or brands that you are loving right now that you see yourself using in a lot of different projects?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So we are loving the fact that we are stepping away from, white cabinetry, gray, those type of trends that were in the last couple of years. And we're really starting to see, stained wood cabinetry come back in natural stone, whether that be, an ashlar stone on the exterior versus, a quartzite or marble on the interior. We're really embracing natural materials again in warm tones. And I personally love that. We are so inspired by, the environment that we live in here in the desert. And a lot of times people will come to visit and they're just like, why is everything brown here? That's because everything like is meant to blend in with the desert. And we're starting to bring that inward, and not in the way that, back in the early 2000s where all our homes were drenched in this hideous brown paint. We're really starting to, we all see that, and homes are still like that, and people still gravitate towards that. But we're bringing it in a modern way now, where we're bringing the natural element of, a textured wall with lime wash or Roman clay, and we're adding texture in more subtle ways, and even like layering textures with our textiles and furniture, and woven pendants and shades and Roman shades and draperies, all that kind of stuff. It's really starting to come back to that natural element, and we're loving that. We implement that in our designs all the time. It's kind of cultivated in our kind of like Western organic modern style that we design in, and we're hoping that that trend continues on for the next couple of years, just really embracing kind of natural materials and elements.
Is there a project that is your favorite project that you've ever done?
There are some projects that have been my favorite. I have designed so many homes, and so many homes that like I had to unfortunately step away from in my transitions to different paths in my career. There's one project that's actually under construction right now. That's a new build here in Queen Creek, with a client, and we still follow each other on Instagram, and she has me in her close friends list so I can see the construction process of their home. But it was a home that I started designing probably about 2 years ago, and got through. We were just starting material selections when I ended up leaving the place that I worked before. And as much as it is hard to walk away from clients and projects like that, I am so happy that I'm able to still kind of see from the sidelines how everything's going and what it's going to turn out to be. But just through what I did, and things could have changed after I left, but what I did in that home were some of the most, to me, unique and amazing designs that I have done. And just looking back at the elevations of those drawings, like, just bring me peace and happiness. And hopefully I can infiltrate that in another project and someone be really open to those same ideas. As far as homes that have kind of come to fruition, we just finished a really beautiful custom home with Grady Olson Design here in Queen Creek. We actually just got the photos back from that project yesterday. So it's really fun to finally see, finished photography of some of these builds as well. But that home was another super fun project, with a great team to collaborate with, and being a custom build. Like, we talked about, exterior finishes, exterior elements. We manipulated kind of the floor plan in that, and then obviously brought together all of the materials. And that's kind of my favorite type of project, is where we're getting in early on and we're working with the architect, and we're kind of looking at everything from our design eye, and maybe changing the floor plan a little bit, or the layout of a space to kind of be more curated for the design elements that we want to see when we walk into that space, and just having more of a say from the beginning rather than just picking out the materials that go into that space. So that's where really kind of my background and my experience comes into play, is because we're not just sitting here picking out the materials. We're really looking at the space and whole in the house together, and manipulating everything to be a little bit more intentional. So that project was really fun as well. But we have a few different custom builds or spec builds that are in process right now that are also enjoyable. So
Yeah,
we're just happy to be a part of the process.
yeah, no, I think it's interesting that one of your favorites is the first one you mentioned when you were going through that transition process personally
Yeah.
between jobs, and it still comes to mind for you as one of your favorites. I think that's really cool because you weren't even in it for the entire duration, but even your little piece that you got to play in it really meant a lot to you, it seems like.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool that you're still able to follow along and kind of spiritually be part of the process, even if you are like physically removed out of the process. So
Yeah, absolutely. I tell her all the time, I'm like, your house was my favorite. I can't wait to see it. And she's like, she's like, a lot of it stayed the same, which I'm like, that makes me happy because every designer's ideas are going to be different. Everyone's intent's going to be different. And although we spent so much time going through everything, like the next designer that came in could have had a whole different vision for that space or interpreted what the client was saying differently and changed everything. And although sometimes like even if like the hardscape element or the design kind of stayed the same, maybe it was materials that maybe I didn't select, but again, like that designer has a different vision for that space. And I'm just happy to be able to see what I can see from projects that I've done in the past or that I had to stop doing and move on from. Like I said, it hurts to have to leave those clients and those relationships, but also like you have to worry about your own career and what you can do and what you can move on with. So I'm just, grateful that the client is still like, yes, I'm willing to show you everything. And yes, I still, I'm happy to show you where we're at and the design process and give you my experience and whatever it might be. So from a distance, I can watch some of my projects come to life and I just get fulfilled by that. And I'm super happy. And I'll shoot them a message and be like, I'm so excited to, see that you're at this point finally in the design phase or like everything's coming to life now. And, we'll just chat briefly about, where they're at and just that I'm happy for them. And these custom homes take so long to design and build. So it's good to finally see some of these things come to life for them.
what point of the process for you do you turn to ProSource? I know for pros, it's very different with how much they use ProSource.
Yeah.
You're a designer, so I'm just curious to see like when ProSource came into your business and like what that partnership is like.
Yeah, absolutely. So ProSource to me is kind of one of those one-stop shops, which is great. Especially working with builders. I've worked with contractors before that, they're smaller or they're a one-man show and they don't want to set up accounts with every manufacturer around the valley. And I get that. Trust me, I have accounts with so many people and it's overwhelming sometimes. So ProSource makes it really easy for designers, builders alike to kind of go in and pick everything out at once. I was there, gosh, a month and a half ago for 5 hours one day, picking out, tile for a spec build. And although it seems crazy to be like, I was there for 5 hours picking out tile, you're picking out things for every home. And me just being able to run over to the section, grab a few things, bring it over. And I'm like, oh, I don't like that with this stuff and bring it right back. It makes it super easy to design right on the spot. And while I was there, I was kind of like just seeing the other customers that were coming in, whether that be like, someone that is doing it on their own. And they're like, well, I had a leak and I need to pick out this floor and just, it caters to so many needs and people. And ProSource has cabinetry designers and different manufacturers and countertops and tile and outdoor stuff and like all the things that anybody needs. So just providing a place like that where so many people can come in and utilize their showroom. The employees are great. They're there to help you in the best way possible to navigate you towards the right selections. And for me as a designer, if I'm looking at a manufacturer, say Bedrosians, and you don't have a sample on the floor, they'll order samples for me, or anything. I can use them as a resource or an extension in all these different ways as a designer. That really helps me out. With that spec build, they were able to pull the samples for me that I could swing by, pick them up, bring them to my meeting, show my client, and then bring them back, which was super great for me because then I'm not ordering all the samples in for myself. And, they can see the full scale, the, 36 by 24 tile, and they can really get a good idea of that. And they even offered, hey, bring your client in and, you can use our showroom as your, presentation area and we can set everything out for you. So they do a lot of legwork for designers, which is so appreciative. That's why we rely so much on our trade partners in this industry, is just because they're there to help us and support us and they go to bat for us. And then we kind of do the same when we go to them and pick materials and, give it to the builder and like, here's everything for you. Here's who we used. Please buy from them. And it kind of works full circle in that capacity.
No, absolutely. Especially you talked about having very many different roles as owning
Yeah.
your own company. Anything that can make it a little bit more streamlined, a little bit easier, I'm sure is very beneficial. Uh, Looking ahead at the next year, what are some trends within home remodeling that you see could take shape?
Oh goodness. I am hoping, like I said, I'm hoping those warm tones, those natural elements, even curved archways, I hope those things continue to go on. We're, in the world of design that I'm in, I focus a lot on custom builds and new construction properties. And with that, you're getting a lot of different design styles of homes, which is really fresh to see, especially in Arizona. You're seeing more, Tudor homes or cottages or wraparound porches, things that aren't really native to Arizona and just are really special and unique. And I am just happy that people love those designs and those styles and that they're really embracing that and bringing them here to the desert. And we're not just doing something cookie cutter. We're not doing just farmhouses everywhere. We're really embracing different styles of homes. So I'm hoping that kind of continues on, kind of in my world of design and where, I'm at what I'm doing, just doing something different and embracing that.
Absolutely. It is nice that we're getting away from, like you said, the cookie cutter homes and everything looking. I think people have like coined it like millennial gray. That's like a
Yeah.
term that's like used for design, that we're getting away from that. And
Yeah.
we're bringing in color in the woods, like the wood textures, like you said. I think a lot of people like that quote retro look just because it does have a lot of those wood textures, colors, that warmth that you really enjoy. But I think we should not just make it retro, but we should make it like modern, right? There's a way to make that
Yes.
modern and not just rely on like a nostalgic place
No,
of design.
absolutely. That's absolutely it. That's where we're bringing things into the modern era, right? Like just because we're bringing something more modern, we're not saying like intentionally like a contemporary modern, right? We're just bringing it into this century. So there's a way to do brown
Yes.
now that is more modern rather than like, the gross yucky brown that I, see on the houses outside my house. Like there's undertones that we're really looking at and understanding more that we're bringing into the home because trends come around, right? They come back around and whether that be fashion or things with your home or paint, whatever it is, things come back around. And so we're really trying to embrace that in a more modern avenue. Roman clay or Venetian plaster used to be a thing back in the day, and now we're seeing that at the parade of homes, and Venetian plaster is all over the house, but it's in a more modern way, in a more refined color palette. And so we're bringing those things back, but really just refreshing it and giving it new life. So that way it seems almost new again, which is super exciting.
No, absolutely. So what is next for you? Do you have any big plans for your business in the next year or so, or any big projects that you're looking forward to starting?
Oh gosh, so many things. We are constantly meeting with new builders to establish ourselves and get our name out there to builders in the valley. Like I mentioned, we're really focused on the custom homes, the new builds, spec builds, all those things. So a lot of those relationships are, curated with builders, and that's kind of where we're at and our passion lies. And so we have been meeting with a lot of builders and just establishing those relationships to hopefully work with them on some of their projects that they have coming in the future. But that's kind of what we've kind of devoted our time to is doing all these outreaches to different builders in the valley, getting our name out there, setting meetings, having these conversations about, what our vision is, what our passions are, what our goals are, talking about my experience and what that brings to the table and how that is different from other designers. So really, we're just focused on getting more of those custom projects and just, diving deeper into what that looks like for us.
Very awesome. So lastly, can you just share where listeners can connect with you to start a project, or if they're maybe on the other side of the country, how they can follow along with your work?
Yeah, absolutely. We do take clients,
From
anywhere
everywhere.
in,
Cool.
yeah, we're open to clients that are outside of Arizona. We do offer e-design services. I've done many clients or projects for clients in Washington that have homes here or have homes in Washington. We do work with clients outside of Arizona as well. But if anyone is interested in working with us, we do have that inquiry form on our website that kind of gives us a little bit of a breakdown and understanding of where you're at in the process. Anybody that you might be working with already, again, sharing those Pinterest and concept boards. And then we reach out and have a discovery call from there. Otherwise, anyone can follow us on social media. Our Instagram is wrenhouse.interiors. We have a Facebook page as well where everything kind of transitions from Instagram, but Instagram's kind of where we live. That's where we, do our main post every week and stories of behind the scenes. And then you can see all of our past projects, behind the scenes stuff, our collaborations with other builders and architects in the Valley, and all the details there is a great place to follow us and get a little bit more behind the scenes.
Absolutely. And I will link the website. I'll link your website in our show notes below. So anyone listening, if you go to our description of this podcast episode, you'll be able to find her website there. Thank you so much for coming on and just sharing your experiences. I feel like we could have talked so much longer, but I really appreciate the time that you shared with us today. Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us today on the ProSource podcast. Please like and subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast. Also, follow us on social media, check out our website at ProSourceWholesale.com, and visit your local ProSource Wholesale showroom for all of your home remodeling needs.